In a world overrun with the fake, delusional, and disingenuous, he stands as a beacon of truth. He is Abuki Cabal. You are listening to Abuki Cabal.
What's going on, everybody? Back at it again. So I had some questions the last time I was here about ivermectin. So just kind of show you guys what's going on here locally on my end with ivermectin. We've had a couple of different situations come up where people are trying to use ivermectin, which it is a drug used as a deworming agent for horses, and not approved for certain treatments in humans. It's not been approved for treatment in COVID patients, but yet there was a preliminary study that was released. It was a small sampling of patients that did show some promising results with a use of a titrated dose over a period of, I want to say, 5 days with ivermectin, and they used a control sampling, which they gave them a placebo, and they gave the other group the ivermectin, and it had some promising results. But the sampling was too small for it to be significant. But people have gotten a hold to this data and started to treat people with the ivermectin against the advice of the FDA and pretty much everybody else who can authorize its use in humans. So we're gonna delve into that a little bit. We had, here within the last week, we had an anti-vax police officer who had been taking the horse worm medicine to treat himself, and he was found in his home deceased. Also, here in local news here, they had COVID-19. As the COVID-19 pandemic continues to take a toll in Arkansas, the state health officials had to put out an advisory warning about the use of ivermectin as a treatment option. Okay, and then we see up here where an investigation was opened up into the reports that Washington County jail inmates were prescribed an anti-parasitic drug to treat COVID-19. Also, it talks a little bit more about the Washington County situation down here. Basically, just elaborating further on it, saying that even though the FDA has specifically warned against the use of ivermectin in the treatment of COVID-19. So, I have a few. I have the actual preliminary study. I'm going to add into the link. I also have a few other bits of information on it. And I'm going to read one article that basically breaks down some of the things that they're saying about the ivermectin. And there's also been an increased amount of people being trying to treat themselves with ivermectin throughout the South, and it's led to an increase in infection control calls. So I'm going to pop that up. Give me a second here. Can't use that one. Wants to do ads. So we'll just stick with what we got here. Okay. We'll go to the first article that I have here. And basically, this is an Ivermectin article. It basically says Ivermectin, COVID-19, abundance of hype, dearth, and a dearth of evidence. Okay. Says here's a tip for navigating the constantly evolving data on the treatments for COVID-19. Beware when someone describes a drug as a miracle. The ongoing devastation wrought by the COVID-19 pandemic creates an understandable allure for a quick fix or magic bullet solutions. But it is painstaking scientific testing, not magical thinking, that reveals what works and how well it. For example, clinical trials involving tens of thousands of patients across multiple continents were needed to demonstrate the enormous value of the COVID-19 vaccines. In the early months of the pandemic, hydroxychloroquine was touted by President Trump, even in the absence of adequate supporting data. Today, it's the anti-parasitic drug Ivermectin, whose developers were awarded a Nobel Prize in 2015 for the drug's success in combating river blindness and other tropical maladies. Veterinarians also use it to prevent heartworm and treat parasitic infections in some animals. Several ivermectin champions, boosted by the internet, have been promoting the drug as a cure for or preventative for COVID-19. But promoting is not the same as knowing. Knowing requires testing. In well-designed clinical trials, ivermectin proponents haven't been content to wait for that research. In striking testimony before the U.S. Senate Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs Committee in December 2020, Perry, I may be murdering that, Corey, a critical care physician who formerly worked for the University of Wisconsin Health University Hospital, described the immense potency of ivermectin, characterizing it as effectively a miracle drug. All studies are positive, he testified, with considerable magnitude benefits, with the vast majority reaching strong statistical significance. Unfortunately, and not for the first time in the COVID-19 pandemic, the hype exceeded the evidence. The gold standard in drug development is the randomized controlled trial. These maximize the chance that the group receiving a treatment and the control group not receiving it are alike in all other aspects. But even such trials must be properly conducted with adequate sample sizes. Investigators and participants blinded to who is getting what, and rigorous data collection and analysis. But Corey cited several non-randomized observational studies in which patients can receive non-standardized treatments, as well as many poor quality control trials. One of these was a trial by Ahmed El Ghazar from Benha University in Egypt. In this trial of patients with severe COVID-19, one group received ivermectin, while the control group, received hydroxychloroquine. People in this group should have received a placebo. According to the research, there was a 90% reduction in the deaths in the ivermectin group, a degree of effectiveness strikingly at odds with most other studies of ivermectin and considerably better than even an FDA-approved therapies for COVID-19. Okay, I'm going to stop here for a second. The reason why it is important that the people in this study didn't get a placebo is because the placebo is is harmless. So it's usually something that is sugar water, a sugar pill, something like that, something that is just harmless to the patient and shouldn't cause any changes, any physiological changes to the patient. But in this one, they use hydroxychloroquine, which hydroxychloroquine has been shown to cause adverse reactions when treating COVID-19. So the study can't be trusted because of its use of two drugs instead of a drug and a control. Okay, a control meaning an inert substance. Okay, so let's go on down here. Okay, a British medical student, Jack Lawrence, was assigned to evaluate Elgazer's paper for a course and encountered a potpourri of apparent plagiarism and data fabrication. The Elgazer paper had not been formally published in a medical journal, but had appeared instead on a preprint website called Research Square. Upon learning of Lawrence's analysis, Research Square promptly retracted the paper. Gideon Meyerowitz Katz, an Australian chronic disease epidemiologist who also reviewed the Elgazer data, found results similar to Lawrence. Research, that means that basically that's what peer review does. You have peers who look at the data and scrutinize the data in order to say whether the data holds up or whether the data is flawed. And in this case, peer review found the flaws in this data and caused for it to be retracted. But the damage is kind of done because people are still flaunting a study that has no merit. So, okay, where were we? Katz, an Australian chronic disease epidemiologist who also reviewed the data, found false similar to Lawrence. Okay, researchers often summarize large bodies of literature by statistically synthesizing trials in what are called meta-analysis. If you remove this one study from the scientific literature, he told The Guardian, most meta-analysis that have found positive results would have their conclusions entirely reversed, meaning that those positive results don't exist. Okay, where to look for higher quality data. And this is something that we talk about all the time about looking for, data in the right places, information in the right places, that's important. And that's why they're talking about that in that regard. So says a group called the Cochrane Collaboration spends its time conducting meta-analysis of the best conducted clinical trials. After excluding dozens of ivermectin studies with high risk of bias, the collaboration left little room for optimism. Based on the current very low to low certainty evidence, we are uncertain about the efficacy and safety of ivermectin used to treat or prevent COVID-19. The group recommended that ivermectin be restricted to clinical trials that might actually generate high-quality data. The World Health Organization and the Infectious Disease Society of America concur. Even Merck, an ivermectin manufacturer, avers that there is no meaningful evidence for clinical activity or efficacy in patients with COVID-19. And just last week, the FDA warned people not to use the drug as a treatment for COVID-19. Okay, so then you see some people here, the FDA, does a tweet, says, "You are not a horse, you are not a cow. Seriously, y'all, stop it." Telling people not to use ivermectin to try to treat themselves for COVID. Okay. Yet ivermectin boosters and merchants have convinced many to use its therapy for COVID-19, particularly in Latin America, where it is used. Its use is so widespread that researchers have had difficulty recruiting patients for trials or other potentially effective products. In June, YouTube suspended the account of Senator Ron Johnson of Wisconsin, a Republican of Wisconsin, a member of the Senate Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs Committee, for a week of spreading misinformation about ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine. The increased demand for the drug, combined with enhanced scrutiny from pharmacists, has caused shortages of veterinary formulations of the drug. Inevitably, a spike in calls to poison control centers connected to the use of veterinary ivermectin has followed. The University of Oxford's rigorously designed principles trial is now trying to determine if ivermectin actually benefits people with COVID-19. But until those results come in, I urge people to heed the lessons of hydroxychloroquine, bleach, and all the other purported COVID-19 cures. Effective treatment will be identified through systematic scientific study, not by wishful thinking, fabrication, or miracles. Okay, this goes back into my spill on snake oils. You guys know how I feel about snake oils and magic potions and all of these things that all of these black folks are out here advocating that you use. And, you guys are listening to people who don't even have medical degrees, have no scientific background, could not read a scientific paper if you walked them through it. And you're listening to these people. And I wish you guys wouldn't. And I'm going to do a quick check here for ivermectin. And poison control. Okay. Mississippi Poison Control Center. Let's see. I've already got a story in the USA Today. 590% spike in Texas poison control calls. So they fact checks that. And it is true. Okay. You also have increased ivermectin exposure calls. Okay. Here's another one for Texas. Talks about the DHS. But it's not just Texas. It's here in Arkansas. It's in Tennessee. Most of the southern states. Let me see if I can pull one up here. Okay, here's one from the CDC. American Hospital Association. And this is talking about the alerts that they're getting. The CDC is alerting clinicians to the surge in ivermectin poisoning during the pandemic. So people are out here scared to death and poisoning themselves rather than going and getting a vaccine that's had more vetting in the process than ivermectin has. And it makes no sense. Okay, I'll read this to you. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention yesterday alerted healthcare providers and the public to reports of severe illness associated with using products containing ivermectin to prevent or treat COVID-19. While ivermectin is approved by the Food and Drug Administration to treat infections caused by parasites, it is not authorized or approved to prevent or treat COVID-19. Dispensing of ivermectin by retail pharmacies and calls to poison control centers involving the drug have increased sharply during the pandemic. However, in some cases, people have ingested products purchased without a prescription, including topical formulations and veterinary products. CDC says clinical effects of ivermectin poisoning can range from gastrointestinal symptoms to hypotension and neurological effects. Okay, so that hypertension means that you bottom out your blood pressure. Bottoming out your blood pressure can result in a loss of consciousness. And with those gastrointestinal symptoms and neurological symptoms, you can aspirate and die. You can have neurological effects that may, who knows how those might be, So a couple of these Any number of these actually could result in death. So that's just to, get the word out on that. If you guys have any more questions, there was one other, I had a question about COVID and smoking. And I looked into that and found that the effects on smokers tend to be more severe. I will put a link down with a pulmonologist who talked about smoking and vaping, and those who engage in smoking and vaping tend to have more severe symptoms and higher chances of mortality associated with COVID-19. So I will keep you guys informed as I come up on more information. I guess I will move on to the next one. Thank you guys for hanging out. Thank you for the subscribers. I appreciate you guys taking me up slowly but surely. I appreciate your faith in the information that I'm putting out, and you guys sharing it and trying to get people the right information for them to make the right decisions and good decisions. I really appreciate it. And thank you guys for hanging out with me. Please like, share, and subscribe.
I feel like a motherless child, a long way from home.